much that it's summer, Michael Wann, with us. You have your summer Barbie look on.
So literally like all this week, I've been talking about like, it's so strange around here. It's like being in the Pacific Northwest. It's misty and it's cool and I'm wearing, and then like today it changed. Like it went from out of nowhere. And so it was a big shift. It was like, I wasn't used to being so hot. And so it came really fast. And then this is where we are now. And I'm learning what that's like here. Because I'm at Nome countryside. So can I tell you about like the sweetest part of it?
Yes, please do.
So it's kind of like I'm calling it a resort. All right. But like traditionally it's known as a place where children would come, and it's often their very first experience in a forested environment. So like first graders, that sort of stuff. And there's a whole program, and it's like a real treasure to the community. Maybe about like 8 or 9 acres, and it's like in all this farmland, and there's this wooded swath that kind of runs in between some different like Amish farm patches. And it's where there's like the reason why it remained wooded is because it's kind of like where these ridges go down into canyons and to where the water is, because that's just like more difficult to farm, I suppose. This is me trying to apply my logic to being Amish. So give me a little create or flexibility with that. So anyway, but looked at from another perspective, like this is where all the magic is, right? This is literally the like riparian buffer where the water and the land and the canyons and the elevation, the heights change. And so the front part of the property is very much like geared. It's been hand carved and polished into this beautiful like trail, and it's for children, and it's done really nicely. And then you go down the back, and that's also open to the children as well, but it doesn't always, you don't go there. And that's where the magic spot is. So all of this is about the heat. Going down to that spot is like it's unbelievably picturesque, and particularly in a contrast to where I was the last time we spoke when I was in Bali and Baltimore. And this has a sereneness, has a different type of beauty. That beauty cannot be matched, but you feel really, really like isolated and in the wooded area, and you're under the canopy, and there's like these bends in this creek that goes by. It's a big creek, like 15 feet, 20 feet across, babbling, and it cools you down. And so you're in the shade, you're by the water, you're like just a 5-minute walk from your house, and like no one's near you. And it's just like, it's a really, that's how I plan on beating this heat. How about that? It's like, I gotta beat the heat.
It's a fine plan. Okay, here's my question. Is the magic spot magic because it's cool and shaded and you get some solitude there, or is there other magic that happens in the spot?
Well, I don't think they're really one. I think you're describing the same thing. Like when, like,
do you manifest things out of thin air? Are you learning to levitate there? Is it a
to that level? To that level? So it's too soon to tell.
Okay.
It's too soon to tell, but the degree of the poeticness in which things have been showing up in my life has certainly gone up an octave or two in the week since I've been here.
And is poeticness different from synchronicity?
Well, I would say it's a little bit more polished synchronicity. I would say it's one and the same. So it's like synchronicity is a recognition of in my definition is a recognition of the poetic interconnection behind life. And you're like, oh, I caught it. Look how beautiful it is. And so then there's a continuum. There's a continuum of how poetic. Like if you're someone who likes poetry, if you're someone who really can understand poetry as an archetype which expresses itself in infinite mediums, and I would say all human beings, when they're human, are love poetry. So what I'm describing is it's a little bit more poetic, but I'm not seeing anything that is as extreme as prior to being there, I could not levitate. And then for some reason, I begin to float up. Like, no, it's not like that Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. Is that where they floated up? That has not happened yet.
I'm holding the vision. Yeah, I appreciate the yet, because it's early days at Gnome Countryside. It's early days in terms of you being in relationship with the magic spot. I think the fact that you've named it the magic spot is going to bring more magic into your experience with it.
Without a doubt. And so, so we're on the same page. And I like to dance, like the way I look at it, like in many ways, I like to live life on the edge. In a lot of ways, I'm the most conservative person in the world. Like, no, I'm risk adverse on that. But there are other things where it's like I go to an edge where I feel very, very comfortable, which I recognize a lot of other people don't. Mm-hmm. And another way, how I understand that edge, because it's not uncomfortable for me. It's like my norm. It's just like in context to someone else's norm. They're like, wow. And we all work that way. So like it's smoke. Like whatever smoke is, like if you really think about like, well, what is smoke? Like it's real, like it's material. It can leave stains on your wall. You can see it, you could blow it, but you can't grab it. You can't put it in your pocket. Mm-hmm. You know, they're like some like hacks. You're like, well, I could put it in this bag and hold it. But like, what is it? And smoke, it exists in this realm, which we literally can see, which is, it's not quite physical, but it's not quite spiritual. And that's an edge. Mm-hmm. And that's when I talk about the magic spot, and I was kind of like obtuse with my definition. It's like, I'm respecting that edge. I want to hold that bubble for as long as I can, because I don't know what it's going to be. And I don't want to claim it's something it's not, because I want to be sovereign with my language. Mm-hmm. And I want to be like integrity with my language. But at the same time, like, yeah, you're supposed to not have expectations, but I kind of do, because I see the smoke already.
Yeah. So as a word nerd, sometimes people ask me what my favorite word is, which I feel like is kind of a ridiculous question, because hyperbole can be tricky. Like, what's your favorite song? How can I choose? And it's the you know.
I'm insulted you put favorite in the question. How about this? Let me tell you a song that I enjoy now.
Well, and when I've been asked my favorite word, what consistently comes to mind is liminal. So as you're describing this edge with which you seem to be more comfortable, I'm feeling the word liminal. Those in between edge spaces.
Oh, liminal is a word which is deep in my lexicon. There, mm-hmm. You know, I don't think I have a particularly wide lexicon. I know like these are the words I like to use. And particularly when I get like what they used to call them like a 50-cent word. You know what I mean by a 50-cent word?
Oh yeah, it's
like,
a big one with like, lots of syllables.
well, I think it's relative. It's relative to what you think your lexicon is. And when it's slightly like when you're outclassed, like that's your 50-cent word, because you got some people who like, you know, their vocabulary is much larger. So within my personal realm, liminal is one of my 50-cent words. Like when I'm pulling that out, like I'm pulling out like my heavy guns. And I like it for these two, because it's here's another one of my favorites is twofer. Like that's one of the greatest descriptions I can give through word form. Mm-hmm. How's that for my hyperbole? So it's one of my personal favorites to give. You know, I get a zing. If you hear me say twofer, you know that I'm getting a zing. And do you know what a twofer is?
Is that like a win-win or like excellent multitasking?
Kinda, it's 2 for 1. Right. Which is what you're saying, but It's got like this poetic sort of thing. So the twofer for liminal is this, like the idea, because you're absolutely right. Like that's a riparian buffer in the natural world, mm-hmm. is the literal ecosystem liminal space. And like you talk to like the ecologists, they're like, that's where all the magic happens, because that's where it meets, because everything worthwhile and mysterious and like and where all the action happens everywhere in our realm is always where it meets in that real like liminal space. But that's not why, like that's part of it. It's the LM phonetics. Like I get really, really like turned on by certain sounds, like certain consonants, and like the LM is definitely like the way that like that unfolds in your ears, in your their temporal lobes, right? Like you're being received, like whatever that meaning is, you still feel it with that LM.
Okay, can I blow your earlobes right now?
Go right ahead.
I was once referred to by a shaman as a liminal criminal.
A liminal oh.
Isn't that so good?
A liminal so they're two. So okay. So all right. This is fun. So liminal criminal is sneaky, because that's sneaky. You know why? Because you just told me that someone who is able to see deeper into the nature of reality referred to you as a liminal criminal.
Mm-hmm.
And if I hear someone of that insight calls you that, my first thing should be pause, because criminal normally has an implication. And so liminal means access. And so you want to ask yourself is like, well, what does that mean? But this is where it's dangerous, because it's such ear candy. You forget all that. And you're just like, liminal criminal. I like how that sounds.
Right.
I call that there's a certain angle. I call it the Machiavellian angle.
Okay.
So it's a concept, but I'm going to describe it visually to you. Okay.
Okay.
So picture like you're standing and you're important. Like your judgment matters. Okay. Like literally, not like within your own mental space, like what you decide, like has real world consequences.
Like I'm the queen of the multiverse.
Bingo, liminal criminal. So you're standing there, and then there's someone who's like, I don't even know how they got there, but they got there, and they somehow have your trust, and they're standing behind you. They're not directly behind you, but they're behind your left shoulder.
Mm-hmm.
And they kind of whisper behind you as you're looking over all of the people or the world which you have control over, and they're just whispering. Like that is, if you're the person standing there, that is a very vulnerable spot. Mm-hmm. Because of what you're looking at and where that information is coming in. And like, that's right on the temporal lobe, like it's right there. And that is it's that, like what we're describing, the criminal, like the way that sounds, like that sort of ear candy, like it has that potentiality. That doesn't mean the person behind you has anything like that it's nefarious or it's wrong, but it's just immensely vulnerable. And so like all of those sort of words and plays, like, I really like thinking about that way, like the psychological play.
Right. So the way you described it sounds so sinister. Just to clear my name, he meant in terms of doing a lot of psychedelics and downloading a lot of higher divine wisdom and not yet grounding it into 3D reality through integrative practices, which is far less sinister than
totally less sinister.
Painted.
Totally less. And like that's to me, that lot. So that's a limit. That's one of these lines, because everywhere, like wherever you could bring your awareness, like once you develop your awareness, like whatever it is that you like to do, you realize that whatever you put that on, like instantaneously becomes in context of what you're looking at. Mm-hmm. So I just said, like, I like the liminal space. So when I see something, like I'm always seeing that sort of that line. And one of my favorites, and this seems to be really a part of like consciousness and this realm, or whatever words you want to use to describe whatever this thing we're doing is. And it's like, as soon as you get near truth, it is so easy. It is so easy to make the assumption of like good guy, bad guy, right? Like, it's like when you start like learning about the people in history, mm-hmm. and you start learning about like, and like immediately, like you're going to have like a, like, oh, this is good daddy. So he's good guy, you know, and I go team, or it's like, oh, this is bad daddy, and no, bad guy, control. But it doesn't matter, because you don't know who they are. And like you meet them. And so understanding that line is like a mental liminal space, because there really are bad guys out there and they're really good guys. And it's like how you like meet that. And I love that. I find that a lot of fun. And what you just described was exactly that. And as a storyteller, I like to play and flirt with that line. It's like, if I could give you enough information to go this way or that way. Like, I'm not saying nothing. I'm just like, you know, and that's the dance. Like, that's what you do so beautifully, is when you demystify propaganda, when you demystify basically the weaponized version of the knowledge of that's just how words work. That's how consciousness works, and that's how words work. And this is how people who understand how words and consciousness work interact with people who don't.
Thanks for that. I love that description. Okay, so what you said was so synchronistic in terms of what I was writing this morning before our chat. And I also want to acknowledge that I haven't introduced you yet. And I'm still going to put that off.
Okay.
Because I want to continue this.
It's fine, right? Because this is more real.
Because exactly, this is how we're playing. So in terms of like meandering in the liminal and connecting with capital T truth and how that can then move us to differentiate between good and bad. I think that good and bad and all polarity constructs, right, wrong, better, worse, left, right, black, white, are enslavement constructs that obscure truth. And so I think our wisest move when we hone in on a capital T truth is to eschew the urge to jump into any of those polarity constructs and just stick with the I don't know and allow the capital T truth to show us what it is, and also to allow space for paradox within that.
That's it. That's our dance, right? That and I always look at that as a skill. Like, and what I mean by a skill is it's something to be honed. You know, that's why it's called a practice. It's not like, oh, one day I have it figured out. It's like, no, you're all like, if you're a professional pianist, like you don't like reach a certain level and be like, you know what, I practiced enough. I'm going to say there's one exception. Okay, I'm going to go and put a big asterisk because this is one of my favorite things. Do you know who Allen Iverson is?
Basketball?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm so proud of I want to end the show right now because that's a high for me.
That's a good one because I mean, this is weird because I have no idea when he played. Like it could have been 20 years ago, it could have been 30 years ago, but I know he played. It was back in a time where like I knew who Allen Iverson was. Okay. So Allen Iverson, like there was something special about him. So just like, that's all we need to know. He was like one of these special players. And part of it was like, he had a certain level of authenticity in how he carried himself. So that would be to the inversion of how Michael Jordan was presented. Mm-hmm. All right. So just like looking at it from those. So Allen Iverson was that guy. So Allen Iverson, who is like 6 feet tall and in trouble since the beginning, but like, just like his heart on his sleeves. And he brings this team to the finals. All right. He played outside Philadelphia. And you know, like how they play the game is like, then they go and they put the people up on the stage and the people with the microphones ask them all those questions. And there's this like love-hate relationship. It's like, I need you to like me enough that you could be open, and I need to go and twist your words around so that people listen to what I got to say. And like, this is the dance. And we travel to all the same games. Like, this is like it's a weird sort of thing. So, okay. So that's going on. And it's like I'm pretty certain it's the NBA finals. So in the world of NBA, like this is it. Like this is the highlight. And Allen Iverson, the guy who just like shouldn't be able to like lead everyone, like who leads everyone and gets them the finals, and they go and he's always in trouble. And he missed a practice. And he's at a press conference. And I think they may have even like lost the game. They might have even lost the next game. It was like a press conference after the game. And one of the reporters starts asking Allen Iverson about him missing practice. And Allen Iverson just kind of like loses it. He's like, seriously? Like, are you aware of what and whom I am? Like, I carried this friggin' team from nothing. Like the whole world is against me and I don't care because I did this. I got a lot going on. You think me missing one practice the day before this game is going to make you think that's what this is? And you're just like, damn, you're right, Allen. So when I said like, you know, maybe there's a point where you don't need practice anymore, that would be my one example where maybe I'll step off of that square.
Okay, not to be a contrarian, but I totally disagree, because that's Allen Iverson being all about Allen Iverson, which would be fine if he were a gymnast or a singles figure skater, but he's playing a team sport. And there's something to be said for the morale of the team working together as a unit, where I feel like that would probably affect team morale if someone ditches practice the day before a big game and is holding this attitude of like, I'm the shit and I'm the reason we won. That wouldn't work for me on the team.
So you raise a really good point. And so part of this is maybe I did not at least paint it the way which Allen Iverson is presented, because there's a possibility this entire story is scripted, but I find this fascinating. So the reason why Allen had that response, and one of the reasons why he was so beloved, is because he was human. He wasn't perfect. He tried his best and he fell down, and he's like, you know, I'm doing the best I can. And the reason why he was so beloved is because he was the ultimate team player, because he did everything for his team. And that was it. Like, he couldn't have, when I say he carried the team, what I meant was he was the glue. Like, there's certain people in a team sport where when they are on the team, everyone is better.
Right.
Like, not everyone has that, whatever that quality is. And so this guy had it, and he had his heart. Well, you know, like, Michael Jordan was notorious for just being like, everyone hated Michael Jordan. Like, he was the worst teammate.
Right.
So Allen Iverson, he snapped, and what he said was justified. You're right in the fact, like, it wasn't the highest path. And he's like, but that's why it was so awesome, because this is who he has always been. He's like, you know, I reach for the stars, but I fall. I'm just human. And you can see in his actions that he you know, he really does try, just like any of us who are like, you know, trying to hold our note. And I don't think it's an easy thing, like, to be famous and to be like a sports superstar and to like all sorts of like that's not an easy thing to do. And so, like, when you could go and meet the story. So you know, this is me. I always root for the human in someone. Like, you made this comment to me about being a big softie, but like, this is it. Like, I I want to go and find that in everyone. And so yeah, like that is my, I'm going to go meet Allen Iverson that way. Like, I meet everything. That's the liminal space I choose to fall over. Sometimes I feel like there's a Machiavellian whispering behind me, get bad advice, but still a good time.
Not me. It's not me.
Not you. Not you, because you're the one who goes to the other realms and you pull in the information which no one else could get.
I do what I can.
You do what you can.
All right, so that changes about Allen Iverson. I appreciate the context that he was always this sort of team galvanizer. Michael, we're back for another show, and it's only been like a month.
Time's gotten weird for me. Has time gotten weird for you, or is it just me?
Okay, time has gotten exceptionally weird, and today's show is all about time. And just to contextualize it for our illions of devoted listeners, after our last show, Michael and I stayed on for another, I think it was another 2 hours. In my mind, it was quite a long time. And we got into talking about time and the project that Michael's working on. And Michael suggested, like, let's do a show about time. Let's do it sooner than later. And it happens to be the new moon today as we're recording, which has something to do with also why we decided to do the show so quickly after the last show. So I just wanted to kind of seed the groundwork with a little bit of context. And yes, time has been cuckoo for me. How are you experiencing it?
So when you said like this happened a month ago, I quickly go to my mental Rolodex of that. And I'm like, I can't even, like, it seems like, no, that wasn't a month ago. That was a really, really long time ago. Like, that there was that. And then listening to the detail you just brought to the conversation, like, it was kind of like recalling a dream. It's like right on that. I love the liminal mental space. Like, it's just right out there. It's like, how can I suck it back in? You know?
Right. And like, you can't look at it directly, but you
can't look at it. Right.
Kind of sideways, like come to me, but I'm not, there's no pressure.
It's exactly, it is that dance. It's like, how can, this is my favorite thing. Okay. So, that's, time is kind of like that. Like, it seems anything that is not within maybe a very short amount, maybe 24 hours, like, it begins to blend into, when did that happen? And it only in conversations like this, where we're actually talking about something like that, does it become, do I become aware of it? Like, it's not something like, I'm like, oh, well, it's not that at all. But yes. That was my first response. I'll give you an opportunity to respond. And then I want to go into why the new moon and why that's significant about our conversation now.
Okay, cool. So for me, it also feels strange that conversation was a month ago, because I think it's been about 3 weeks that, like, a week feels like a year now. It's very strange in terms of how long, like from a Saturday to Saturday, that used to feel so much shorter. And now it feels like lifetimes in between. So it does feel to me like our show was that much, longer ago. I think that's a phrase now.
Right.
And also Mercury retrograde. This to me, aside from being an ass kicker of a retrograde, feels like the longest retrograde. I know they're always the same amount of time, but I feel like now I just live in perpetual Mercury retrograde and that it's never leaving. That's how much my experience of time's alleged onward ticking is happening in my realm.
So let me, and so I'll talk a little bit about this in detail. Can I talk about this in detail?
Please detail us up.
All right. So normally Mercury retrograde is low on my, like, the things which I follow. There's certain things I follow and I'm like, this is high. And then certain things I don't. But I know that Mercury retrograde is a thing. Like, I'm aware of it because of the starboard, but the amount of weight I personally give to it would be less than what I would give to any normal new moon. Like, in terms of Mike's value system. Yes, ma'am.
Do you have anything in Gemini in your chart?
Which chart?
Your natal tropical.
Sidereal tropical, because they say I'm two different people.
Tropical.
Yeah, I got a lot in Gemini.
So I feel that intensely in my short relating with you. Like, for me, it's very prominent. And I feel like Geminis have a complete, like, Gemini energy, of course, has a different relationship to Mercury because it's their home planet. So I feel like when it comes to Mercury retrograde, that anyone with strong Gemini aspects in their chart is kind of already living there or is already impervious. There's just a whole different
all right, liminal
criminal.
All right, liminal criminal. You just nailed it. Yeah, that's probably an accurate description. If I want to go and look at my chart as a means of understanding behaviors that come out of me inherently in tropical, I personally am not I know my signs, but I've been putting less and less value into it, but we're going to talk about, because I know we like to talk stories. So tropical, I've got a 12th house Gemini moon. Okay,
wow.
so what that means is, like, moon at 12th house moon is like is always like a kind of like woo, and then Gemini is, when you add in this like communicative both sides coupled with a Cancer rising. So the Cancer rising then gives a little bit more juice to the moon on top of it. Like, it makes it like a dominant, and even more dominant because the moon is always dominant. So it's all of that. And that coupled with, I got Saturn in Gemini as well, but that's in the 11th house. So it doesn't have a 12th house connotation as the moon. But yeah, I relate archetypically very strongly with that. And you have a prominent 12th house quality as well. And what I described is very conducive to, like, being able to see things in a similar way or feel things in a similar way. Like, there's we're kind of like dialed in. We can understand that. But I'm going to throw this into the mix and then I'll let you respond, because you're going to like this. You're going to like this a lot, because this isn't a normal Mercury. Like this is like Mercury retrograde, but there's something else in retrograde. You know what else is in retrograde?
Aren't a zillion things in retrograde?
Well, right now, no, they're two. Or two of the things which were normally tracked.
I want to guess Pluto.
Well, guess what? You guessed right. So Pluto in retrograde is a little bit different. To me, that's much more interesting than Mercury in retrograde. Like Mercury in retrograde is kind of like, oh, we got a mosquito in the house. Mm-hmm. It's like when you're lying in bed and you hear the mosquito and you're like, oh God, this just kind of like sucks. And like, what do I want to do with this? How do I want to meet this? I don't want to get upset because I'm getting ready to go to bed, but it's like, I still don't need this mosquito like singing in my ear. So that's Mercury in retrograde to me, versus like Pluto in retrograde is like, hey, your house is on fire. So, okay, so that's just normal. So that's what you want to do, is understand the relationship of Pluto and Plutonian archetypes within your own chart. And then you want to go and look at your life and see and ask yourself, does this hold weight? Like that's how I meet this dance. Okay. So I know in my chart that Pluto holds a very, very significant location. It sits right on the bottom of the chart. Mm-hmm. Right on the bottom. Anytime you got any planet on any of the cardinal points, it's like it's amplified. And then where at the cardinal point it's at is like the flavor of the amplification. Mm-hmm. So Pluto's strong in mine. Now in your chart, your Pluto sits right on your descendant. So that's a strong position as well. And so both of us have this like strong, or anyone, I mean, I'm just saying you and me because we're talking right now, but like anyone, when you go and look at your chart, and chances are, there's going to be like really obvious ways in which a particular part or something it shows up in your chart. You can find that some things are going to be obvious, like we said, like, it's going to be right on a cardinal point, or maybe a conjunct your sun or something like that. But then anyone with any degree of imagination, you're going to find a connection somehow. So like it's all connected, but it's particularly connected with you and me. And that I could see like the Plutonian quality with the Mercury quality would definitely add to a general, I think the term is wonkiness. Is it wonkiness is what they would say? And I don't know if that comes from Willy Wonka or not, or if Wonka comes from wonkiness.
Wow. Now I want to
That's
do
a 2-point
etymology
question.
Look up.
Two-part.
Okay, I'm looking up the wonky really quick.
Right.
My guess is that it predates Willy Wonka.
I would think so too.
I want it to. 1919. It definitely predates.
All right. So
shaky, groggy, unstable.
What is it?
It means shaky, groggy, unstable, unknown origin, and then there's a German
That's Wonka.
Shaky or tottering.
All right. Now, so I made one reference to Wonka a little bit earlier in terms of the floating. Now Wonka is always interesting. So just to go, because I like to go to tangents, but we're going to pull it back. We'll pull it back because we gave a little astrology. We gave a little bit of personal insight. Now we're going to go, because I know you like this stuff as much as I like this stuff. Okay. So what do you know about the author of Willy Wonka?
Nothing. Who wrote it? Oh, wait. Who was it? The James and the Giant Peach guy? Or is it someone different? Uh-huh. Yeah. Okay. So I was obsessed with James and the Giant Peach as a kid. I read it over and over. My parents were like, we can buy you another book. And I'm like, no, I'm good.
No, thanks. Why don't you guys take care of your business? I got the peach under control. And yeah, don't forget to shut the door when you leave.
Seriously.
All right. I could just imagine. 8-year-old Dani. All right. So what's that author's name? I can't think of his name. He's written a whole bunch of stuff. He wrote like the Fantastic Mr. Fox.
Yes, which was a great Wes Anderson claymation.
What was that, the thing with like Bean and like there were the three guys, Bean and Butter? They all had B names. Because I remember reading it to my sons when they were like maybe 5 or 7.
Dahl.
Yeah. All right. Do you know this guy's background?
No.
Oh my God, it's so good. So I'm going to try to do my best. Like, this is such a complex story, and I'm not going to make it that complex, but I'm going to do my best to remember it off the top of my head. So there was, if you're familiar with your OSS CIA history, okay? But you know it exists.
I know it exists, and I'm excited to be more on top.
And you know that in our world that is the symbol of the ultimate bad guy tricksters, right?
Yeah.
And really all state-sponsored espionage, right? It's not just those. That's like, we got Mossad, MI6, all of the KGB, all of that like that. So okay. So World War II is really what, the history books tell us is what really brought America into the world stage, world superpower. Mm-hmm. Like we were kind of set up from World War I, but it was after World War II is really when everything became US focused and all that sort of stuff after the world was divvied up and all the new. So, okay. And we know that in the world since then, that the CIA and all things connected to that, and MK Ultra and all of that, it all kind of goes through there. So, okay. There was an organization that came into North America. And everything I'm going to tell you is like so easily verified. In fact, I did a 2-hour, I was on what's it called? The Higher Side Chats. This is my favorite presentation ever, which I did on this one. So I go into it in great detail, but there was this small organization of British intelligence which came in, which was headquartered in the Rockefeller building in New York City, Rockefeller Center, and more or less was the behind the scenes of what created what would be like Wild Bill Donovan and all of like the early CIA and OSS. Like this was the guy who was like, this is how you do it, buddy. It wasn't like there was some guy coming out, I think he came out of Buffalo, who was like, oh, I know how to build the world's greatest intelligence. No, someone who already is part of the world's greatest intelligence system was like, this is what you do. Right? This is how you do it. So this is the group. So the group is called, I think it's called BSC. It stands for like British. William Stevenson is the name of the character. And if you look at him, he looks exactly like Piers Morgan, but it's 60 years earlier. But that's another part of the conversation, because I'm snipping it right there. And I'm telling this to you for one reason. If you go and you look at the number of people who were involved with his British security company, it may have been called that, it's BSC. And then what they became afterwards. So they were agents of the British intelligence, and their job in America was to teach how, like literally how to go and write the news articles, which one would sway and create public opinion, but two, be able to go and hide secret information in the public messages. So like a spy would be able to read it. So, so like imagine like the Winston Smiths of the world, like, you know, the people behind the scenes who do the actual work, like not like the names who we all know, but like the people who did the work.
Right.
So who had the skills, right? Because how else would you do it? You had to know what the hell you're doing. You need to know the techniques. So yeah, Ronald Dahl's one of those guys. Another one is, let me go and it's been so long that what do they call Nielsen? Like Nielsen, like public
Nielsen ratings.
Yeah, like that whole idea shapes everyone's opinion on everything. Yep, that guy came out of that program. They're like Ogilvy, like, you know, like Ogilvy, the
advertising company?
Yes, Ogilvy came out of it. He like totally changed advertising. So all of this like knowledge, which was being used by this group, and these are just 3 people who I could find on Wikipedia. Like imagine the people who aren't on Wikipedia. So I don't even know how we even got here. Somehow we mentioned something. Oh, Ronald Dahl and Willy Wonka. That's what it is. So Willy Wonka, like I look at popular culture from a very, very like, and you could say that maybe it's a little bit too sinister, but I think it's fun. You know, I don't take it that seriously, but I'd look for that story. Like I look at Wonka. I look at the Wonka movie and the Wonka story, and all of the books that came from him were highly subversive, highly subversive. But at the same time, it was like subliminal, liminal, criminal. Like, it's like you can't get enough of it. It's like, I like this. Let me read this a 3rd time. Can I read this a 4th time? Oh, I like the way that peach looks on the drawing on the front. Damn. Like everything about that was like seductive.
Okay, so have you pinpointed, because you have this knowledge, he was in the program, were his books tools of programming?
His books were like 15, 20 years later. So what you have to do, or the question which you ask yourself is this still part of that program, or did the program let them free and this is what naturally came from it?
Well, I mean, that question is so prevalent in all of it, right? Tulsi Gabbard, Putin, are they still working for the nefarious forces that trained them, or have they gone rogue, right?
So there's a general rule of thumb, whether or not it's true or not, I don't know. But the general rule of thumb is like, once you're in the company, you're always part of the company.
Right.
So if that holds water, well, then, yeah, it's all still one way. So this is where it gets so tricky. It's like when you throw in the idea of controlled opposition. So it's like, so, okay, you're a person, you're looking at all this stuff and you're like, something's not right. Something's not right. And then you get your hands on like something, like you'll be like, what was the guy's name? Butler Smetler, like War's a Racket. That was like a big book. And so everyone's reading that in the 30s. And they're like, I knew it. And then they begin to go and frame up like, okay, these are the good guys and these are the bad guys. I'm like, okay, I got it now. And then they whisper in your ear, there's controlled opposition. Just because you think that they're the good guys, they're actually under the subconscious influence of the bad good guys. And then you're like, I don't even know who to root for anymore. It's just like Bosnia-Herzegovina all over again. I never knew who I was supposed to root for then. And it's like, I don't know who to root for now. So I just stopped rooting. I just stopped rooting other than for like beauty and kindness and sweetness and like being true and authentic and like being carried by the wave of life. That's how I met that, because I went through that. I called it the James Shelby Downward vortex.
Well, it's interesting because it brings it back to something we said earlier about honing in on a capital T truth and then trying to decipher the good, the bad, based on these reductive polarities. I'm similar to you. For me, I'm rooting for capital L life, capital T truth, and love. And however that shows itself, and it's probably not going to be in front of a lot of cameras on the global stage. You, sir, in the blue Susquehanna alchemy shirt.
Define love for me, please. So you can't say that is a grounding principle, or at least say like, this is the best I can define it, because I like what you're saying, but I want to make certain I understand what you're saying.
Okay. Well, okay. I'm going to simplify with, I don't want to say I don't know, because I don't want to program my subconscious with that I don't know what love is. And I used to say serving light. And that was kind of my test when I was dealing with a mystical person where I wasn't clear where they were. Are you serving light? And I posed that question to one of these mystical people at one point, and he said, I serve sound, because the only way to see light in this dimension is through an inversion. So it's part of that inverted reality. Right. It totally blew my mind. Yeah, and I was like, what? You just pulled my worldview completely out from under me. I don't know what to do with that. So I've truncated it to love, which feels like a little bit of a cop-out, which you just called me on. I don't really know.
All right, can I give you my definition? Because I think about this stuff. This is the sort of stuff like when like other people are doing other stuff and then I'm doing something, that's what I'm doing. I'm doing that. So, okay. Love refers to the connective agency of all of life. Like whatever it is that it like holds it all together, when you recognize that it's all part of like the same thing, like whatever that thing is, like that is the love. And then it's expressed in all of these different ways. A lot of it is inversion. The fact that love is phonetically the same as evil backwards tells you a little bit about how they've spelled it into people's minds, but there's a truth. And there's also a truth about a decay in this realm, but there's an expansion decay, but the overall thing is about expansion. And so there's a truth also about the evil love like dichotomy, but the bigger picture is like the overall trend, which is like, this is about something expanding. And then that's what the way to me, what that word means is understanding that and how it's all part of it. Like even the decay.
Okay, that's exactly what I was getting when you started talking about it in terms of the interconnectedness of all things. And as for me, I was feeling it viscerally of like, well, love is an expansion that embraces and includes and accepts and acknowledges everything. So I feel like we're on the same page.
I would definitely say so.
What are you holding?
What do you mean? Like in my hands?
Yes. What are they?
All right. I'm thinking this was a gift. This was a gift from, I want to say this is Ross Ben. So he's like a crystal guy. So when crystal people give you crystals, like always when it's a gift, it's always the best, right?
Totally.
So this one, it looks like it's smoky surrounding something else. Like I could see I can see the shape of something which the smoky is surrounding. It's probably a quartz, but I like that. And I like who it came from. Can it be the
Grail? I think it's smoke surrounding the Grail.
All right. It's the Grail. So this is the Grail stone.
Okay.
So I've got so I pick it up and run really fast. So this is now
Great.
known as the Grail Stone.
Awesome.
And so it's like the next time someone asks me, they're like, well, what is that? And I don't have to like, well, it's given to me by Ross. And like, no, I'll be like, it's the Grail Stone. What do you think it is? It's the Grail Stone. Why? Because smoke is, and I know because smoke is surrounding it.
Great.
And I already indicated that I like that smoke realm. So then this
Exactly.
one is, I think they call this Melody Stone.
Oh, that's pretty.
And or they also call it Super 7. And there's a whole, this is my opinion. It's interesting because I love the story, but there's a marketing campaign behind it. Like whenever you got a crystal with a brand name, there's a little bit of
Super
that.
7.
That makes sense. Yeah, exactly.
But it's fun to say.
Gentlemen, come on through.
Thank you, Dr. Wann. Who are you speaking with today?
Dani, you are in luck because we have the gnome man himself popping in. Let me get him in the screen.
Hello, sir.
And who is this, Jen?
Dani Katz.
Dani Katz. I've heard about you.
Oh, wow.
From, Dr. Wann. And this is my friend Anthony.
Hi, Anthony. Are you Mr.
Hello.
Rich? Is that correct?
That is correct.
It's so nice to meet you, Mr. Rich. Hi, Anthony. Nice to meet you too.
Nice to meet you.
So nice to meet you. And where are you located as we speak?
I'm in northern New Mexico.
Oh, northern New Mexico. Are you close to the raging fires?
Kind of.
That's a little frightening.
Yeah, no, we're not into those.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we've been blessed with some rain. So that's been a nice blessing.
Good. And what do you do there, Dani?
I think a basic overall umbrella term would be rabble rouser. I also teach people how to use language to create and transform reality. And I also teach homeschool students about propaganda and critical thinking.
Well, good for you. Have you ever seen any gnomes?
Not yet.
No, I haven't either, but I've had so much fun looking for them.
Well, I feel like by naming your whole operation Gnome Countryside, it's bound to attract them at some point.
Well, I'm sort of hoping so. And I've been looking for them here for 43 years now. And that's how I've made my living, looking for gnomes.
I honor your tenacity.
Yes, well, thank you, Dani. And I'm curious, Dani, how old are you?
I forgot. I stopped counting a few lifetimes ago.
Well, come on, you can come up with it.
I don't really play in the linear time realm because it activates the mortality codes,
well,
which
then
goes
we'll
against
change
my
the
whole dharma
question.
here.
Okay, Dani, we'll change the question to what is the most valuable lesson? We all have learned valuable lessons. Even if you're 17 years old, you've learned valuable lessons. And I know you're older than that. So what is the most valuable lesson, Dani, you've learned in your life?
To take good care of one's teeth.
To take good care of one's
Teeth.
Oh, I talk about that on my trail because that was a mistake I made when I was young. I did not take good care of my teeth. And we understand gnomes live to be about 400. So my guess is they would take very good care of their teeth. And I go to Costa Rica for my dental work, and you probably go to Mexico.
Exactly.
Because in Costa Rica, a root canal is $200. In Quarryville, it's $1,600. And I've had how many implants? 6 implants done in Costa Rica, and they've all been perfect and no problems at all.
Good. I'm happy to hear that. I find the dental work is much better quality in Mexico than it is in the States. And then people don't hassle me about fixing things that I don't think are wrong with my teeth.
That's exactly right. Yeah. Well, Dani, what a pleasure.
So nice to meet you, Mr. Rich.
So nice to meet you too. And this is a very interesting young man here.
Indeed.
Okay. Bye, Dani.
Bye. Have a great day. Bye, Anthony.